turn now to the Canadian military mission in Afghanistan. Concerns about the treatment of detainees, the Afghan president musing about joining the Taliban, the rising death toll of Canadian soldiers, and a mission end date just over a year away. So what progress is Canada making in Afghanistan? Scott Taylor, the publisher of Esprit magazine, has recently returned from Afghanistan from his 5th visit in the past 3 years. He's working on a documentary for CPAC to air later this year. But we want to get an idea of what he saw on his latest visit to that country. Scott Taylor is with me now. Scott Taylor, first of all, good to see you again. Thanks for being here. First, we should explain that you spent 23 days on the ground in Afghanistan in this most recent trip. You interviewed the Taliban, foreign diplomats, aid workers, and even went to one of the notorious Afghan prisons where you spoke with a captured suicide bomber. We're going to see all of that in the next few minutes. Who were you with this time? Tell us about this visit.
It was actually sort of a double-ended visit. I went in first as an invited guest with the Defense Department. They take certain people in and they give you off-the-record briefings both in Kabul and in Kandahar, and sort of give us what they wish it was like outside the wire. And then I immediately finished with that, met up with Ottawa Citizen Defense reporter David Pugliese, who I've been in with before, and the two of us ventured back in. And we do the unembedded, we grow the beards, grow the hair, wear the local clothing, and live outside in the cities, and then go out and basically look to get the perspective of the people, the main players, the stakeholders in Afghanistan, I mean, the ones that you mentioned, I mean, and see where they're at. I mean, as far as what the progress is being made, what they think about it, what's happening, and I think you get a very different perspective. I mean, the people that are in the bunkers, in the embassies, and in the bases, I mean, they get little bits of information coming back, and they try to piece it together and look at what's out there. But I mean, to actually get out and view it, you know, from the opposite perspective, is quite enlightening.
Well, let's talk about some of that. You know, our objectives in Afghanistan have been to defeat the Taliban, bring in democracy, including more rights for women, and to rebuild the country. So when you were outside the wire, as they say, what progress did you see? What progress has there been?
Well, I mean, a lot of those objectives that you just mentioned, I mean, even those have changed. I mean, now we're talking about reconciliation and reintegration with the Taliban, and a lot of that's being seen by the Taliban as mere words because, of course, they're ramping up for major military offensives. At the time we were there was a major offensive in Helmand province, and there was leadership strikes taking place against the Taliban in Pakistan at the same moments that you've got people in the international community saying, look, we really can't defeat them militarily, let's start to talk to them. And they had some interesting perspectives, I mean, the Taliban leader on that. Other things such as the progress being made for women, we sort of assume that that's taking place. We sort of looked at that, you know, it was like the war against the burqa back in 2001, 2002. Everyone felt that that was won. I mean, women are in schools and they're moving forward. People that are there, I mean, working with various agencies come back and said, no, in fact, progress is rescinding. I mean,
right.
we're losing ground since 2006.
But when you look at some of the images we're seeing here, you know, living conditions, this 5 times that you've been in the last 3 years, so have you seen even an incremental improvement in the way people are actually living?
Very little for the average Afghan, very little change. I mean, you'll still see a lot of the roads are unpaved. I mean, areas, I mean, debris from the battles, even from the previous battles against the Soviets is still left uncollected. But inside what you can call it a green zone, inside the embassy districts or inside the bases itself, I mean, progress is being made at an amazing pace. I mean, as far as that goes. I mean, the lifestyle for our diplomats inside the embassy, they've got their own gym, their own bar, they've got things that they've built. Guest houses and things that we go and visit, I mean, they haven't changed essentially very little since 2001.
Let's hear from some key voices here. You met with a wide variety of key players in Afghanistan. Tell me about Akbar Bai. He's the Turkmen political leader. Why is he important?
Well, this is, I mean, underneath the government of Hamid Karzai, which is not respected, and then you've got Taliban parallel governments or shadow governments in various provinces. In the north, you still have the various tribal leaders, the ethnic tribal leaders, and he's one of those from the Shibirgan province. He'd been a warlord before. I mean, and these guys technically hold no office, but they have huge mansions, they have private armies, and they are the face of the real Afghanistan. When all the dust is, you know, settled and everything's, the international community's left, those guys are still going to be there to determine what Afghanistan will look like in
fact,
the future.
you talked to him about how long President Karzai would last when NATO leaves.
He had some strong opinions about
Let's hear what he had to say.
It's 4 o'clock. If the American and NATO soldier leave from Afghanistan, 4 o'clock. 6 o'clock will be Karzai collapse, the Karzai government. He cannot survive for 2 hours. And I hope, and I will be happy that America leave from Afghanistan. Why? We're tired from false democracy in spending people's taxpayer, bring him to Afghanistan, give him this taxpayer to the thief in the corrupt government, people living in the jobless, poor, no life. Better the America should be leave right now, not 2011. You have to leave. Why? If you spend 1.5 years again in here, spending billion dollars to supporting your military in corrupt government, you should be leave right now.